Chapter 58, Miss Anne is angry too. Without mind power, everything would be in vain. In other words, the spirit concentration technique used in the first volume of the Mind Concentration Foundation Forging Technique was not only a secret technique that could be used to activate genetic base points related to mind power, it was also a secret method to train his mind power. He could also expend his mind power while activating genetic base points to train his mind power. No, I should be a special case. Zhu Tui immediately reacted. Other people would not be able to lock onto the genetic base points they needed to activate within a short time like Zhu Tui even if they could train using version 4.9 of the Mind Concentration Foundation Forging Technique and could focus their minds. Other people might need 1 to 2 days to lock onto a genetic base point that they wanted to activate. They had to use the silver nameplate as a base for the time being. Soon, Zhu Tui remembered that there was a consciousness forging technique in the version 4.9 of the Mind Concentration Foundation Forging Technique that Zhao Soxui had given him. It had to be complemented by the silver nameplate. It was actually very simple. The consciousness forging technique was simple and brutal. That was to inject all of his mind power, or perhaps his concentration, into the silver nameplate in an instant and unleash it in a certain direction. Then he can see how many scales he could unleash. Anything that exceeded the current limit of mind power was called forging consciousness. Isn't that what I do when I pop a bottle in class? The instantaneous explosion of mind power? Zhu Tui suddenly reacted when he thought about that. A real battle. This consciousness forging technique trained the instant activation and explosive power of a person's mind power. It was definitely for practical use. Zhu Tui, who had become excited, calmed his breathing. The moment his gaze landed on the 20-gram vacuum silver tantalum bottle, he widened his eyes. He injected all of his mind power and instantly activated it. Just like when the bottle exploded just now, the silver nameplate in the vacuum bottle was raised and quickly exceeded a scale. It then started to do free swinging exercises. 10.1. The instant he unleashed his power just now, Zhu Tui's standard scale of mind power had exceeded 10.1. He estimated that the explosive force was less than 5%. He did not meet the requirements. It looks like I have to train my consciousness technique well. Based on Zhu Tui's understanding, it was like the shot put events in high school. Many of the male students had similar fundamental abilities. However, some of them scored far away, while others scored very close to the mark. Some even failed. That involved the eruption of power, the technique used, etc. It was the same for the consciousness forging technique. Mind power was a fundamental power. The consciousness forging technique trained the explosive power of the mind and the technique of exerting force. I have to practice this consciousness forging technique a certain number of times every day. Zhu Tui made a note in his training notebook and quickly entered a meditative state. He relaxed his mind and fell asleep. Zhu Tui took advantage of his lunchtime, which was less than an hour, to recover his mind power. If he did not have the energy, his afternoon lessons would be wasted. The afternoon lessons of the School of Enlightened Mind were reading and physical training. According to Mr. Beyond, reading and thinking were the only confirmed ways to enhance one's intelligence in the School of Enlightened Mind. When one has read too many books, they will think more. Intelligence would then appear. After completing the tortuous physical training lesson, Zhu Tui sent Zhao Soxui a message. After receiving an affirmative reply, he brought along the 5 superb type cultivation projection cards that Mr. Wen Xiao had given him and rushed to the Genetic Research Institute. He walked the right route this time and arrived in 7 to 8 minutes. However, he was still covered in sweat. It was because of the physical training class. Have some water. And Zhao Soxui did not conceal her disdain for Zhu Tui, who was covered in sweat, when she saw him. She handed him a glass of water. Miss Anne, it's like this. I had a major lesson on Mr. Wen Xiao's mind power training today, and I accidentally popped a bottle then. Mr. Wen Xiao said that he wanted to recruit me into the School of Superbs and would give me a special recruitment recommendation. In the end, he even kindly gave me 5 superb type cultivation techniques. Zhu Tui went through the list. That was the decision Zhu Tui made after much deliberation in the afternoon. Between Wen Xiao and Zhao Saxui, who did Zhu Tui trust more? The answer was clear as day. It was Zhao Saxui. The difference was not small. This was especially so after Gong Ling's answer. Zhu Tui had a slightly negative thought. That was why he had come to ask Zhao Saxui. He wanted to see what Zhao Saxui had to say about this matter. The worst outcome was that Zhao Saxui would not allow him to practice the superb type cultivation technique that Wen Xiao had given him. However, the initiative for training was with him. If there were any benefits, the outcome of his training would depend on Zhu Tui. There was no harm in consulting another professor. Zhu Tui ignored Wen Xiao's instructions. It was just a reminder, not a request. Wen Xiao did not expect Zhu Tui to sell him out in the blink of an eye. And Zhao Xu's expression turned cold when she saw the 5 superb type cultivation projection cards that Zhu Tui had brought out. And Zhao Saxui did not wear a mask within the Genetic Research Institute's Institute 14. What are your thoughts? Are you moved? And Zhao Saxui asked. A little. After all, it is a superb type ability. I watched those dramas when I was young. That magical superpower is something I would dream of having. Then why are you asking me? Why didn't you just train and obtain a superpower? Zhu Tui was a little dejected, and Zhao Xu's retort. Miss Anne, I was afraid that there would be a problem with the secret cultivation technique. I wanted to look for you to see if this item is real. It's real. It's absolutely real. I can guarantee it. And Zhao Saxui immediately interrupted Zhu Tui. If you are willing, you can return and train. See if you can develop the superpower that you dreamed of. And Zhao Saxui had a cold expression when she said that. If he could sense it, the air she exhaled would definitely be cold. Zhu Tui started to sweat, and Zhao Saxui was angry. Teacher, I don't really understand, so I specially came to ask you for guidance. This was another secret technique that the sociology of the school had taught Zhu Tui. He had to learn to act pitiful when a teacher was angry, to act dumb, or to act cute. Under normal circumstances, the teacher's fury would decrease by 1 level after this secret technique was used. You're not too stupid. And Zhao Saxui stared coldly at Zhu Tui. Let me ask you, what's the most important thing in Wen Xiao's lesson today about the mystery branch? The mind power is the most important foundation. There's no contest. Then we did you ask? At this moment, and Zhao Saxui looked at Zhu Tui as if he was a fool. Then why did Mr. Wen? He thinks you are a genius. Zhu Tui broke out in a cold sweat once again. It did not seem easy to get along with Miss An after they got along for some time. You can go, study and train hard. You did very well in Wen Xiao's class. Zhu Tui was speechless. And Zhao Saxui suddenly had a cold smile when she saw Zhu Tui's back view. It looks like they are already used to their luxury.